Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes. Great. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. And I'm sorry I couldn't be with you in person today. But now we have cutouts and we have digital, and so we're multimedia here. So the At the Table campaign will be emphasizing the urgent need for climate change to be high on the agenda at this year's summits. This is the first high-level summit post-Copenhagen. And it's critical at both the G8 and at the G20 that leaders adopt aggregate 2020 and 2050 emissions reductions commitments that are aligned with climate science. And we desperately need countries to support a peak in global emissions well before 2020. But I'm going to speak today on two places that are critical for G20 and the G8 to address. The world's governments have committed to two important things: to phasing out inefficient fossil fuel subsidies and financing developing countries to help respond to climate change. The G20 brings together the biggest emitters and the world's economic leaders, and it's a very important place to move forward on these issues. As the chair and the co-chair of the G8 and the G20 respectively in June, Canada can improve its environmental reputation by leading on important climate decisions. For Canada to be a credible and to be an effective chair of discussions on climate, we domestically need stronger emissions targets. We need action on phasing out fossil fuel subsidies, and we need commitments to short-term climate financing. Prime Minister Harper has got to stop trying to dodge these issues and to come to the table. So very briefly on subsidies, in the Pittsburgh G20 leaders' statement, and again at APEC last year, the Harper government committed to phasing out subsidies for fossil fuels and to developing implementation strategies and timeframes, and then reporting back at the next summit. But what is the plan? What is the timeline? The fact is that the subsidies that developed countries eliminate can be used to provide international climate finance for mitigation and adaptation. It's very simple. We need to shift the subsidies. We need to stop harming and start helping. In August 2008, the UNEP reported that each year globally, around 240 billion euros, that's the equivalent to about 337 billion Canadian dollars, is being spent on energy subsidies, and the lion's share is being used to artificially lower the price of fossil fuels or nuclear energy. These subsidies are making energy efficiency less attractive and keeping renewable energy out of the marketplace and propping up non-competitive and non-efficient technologies and fuels. Our tax dollars need to fund a clean energy future instead of subsidizing major corporations to make high profits polluting. Export Development Canada is supporting billions of dollars in transactions in the oil and gas sector, and very little relatively in Canada right now for renewable energy. The fact is that Canada missed its opportunity in last week's budget to live up to the government's international commitments, both for phasing out fossil subsidies and for committing our fair share of climate financing for developing countries. So finally, on financing, we've seen the EU, Australia, Japan, and the US, they've all pledged climate financing. Once again, where is Canada? Developed countries have agreed to provide up to $30 billion over the next 3 years towards developing countries and to put forward $100 billion US by 2020. At the G8, we must discuss implementing a plan for initial $30 billion fund transfers to happen. At the G20, we need to work to design a new climate fund to help transfer these funds. And as host, Canada must commit our fair share, which has not yet been done, calculated to be somewhere between 320 and 420 million per year for the next 3 years. The fact is, Prime Minister Harper did make a commitment in the throne speech, but once again, that commitment has not been followed by action, and we've seen nothing in this year's budget. Thank you.